Good morning, Internet. Dissidia Duellum will drop tomorrow. It is probably out by the time I'm uploading this one. And I'm personally really hyped. I'm a huge Dissidia fan, and having a full console game would have been much better, also, in my opinion. Everyone is a little pissed off for reasonable reasons, understandably so. But I mean, what can you do? I talked about this in my main channel with a really elaborate video. You can watch it if you want to. I will link it in the comments. Why we are not getting a console Dissidia game. I wish they would have tried, but it's understandable that they wouldn't in the situation they are and the way how uh, their games are not selling for some reason. But they released an interview with the creators behind Final Fantasy. It was like a handful of people, to be really honest with you, not all too many. But it was a really interesting insight into some situations behind Square Enix, Final Fantasy as a whole, and what the developers think, and some subtle implications that people probably don't really think about, and Square is probably also not aware that they gave that away. So I thought, let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about this interview right here. So first off, it is really interesting that they are picking someone as old as, and yeah, no, I will probably butcher the name, but Akitoshi Kawazu, like someone as old as that guy, dragging him in front of the camera just so he can talk about what was that? Final Fantasy 1, Final Fantasy 2. He was also involved in Final Fantasy 12. This thing says right here. This guy had nothing to say, dude. This guy might as well have shut his mouth the whole video long, and you would have been as smart and informed as you were before. I mean, he's a really nice guy, so I can't really um, shit talk that guy all too much. So a little unfortunate that all he had to say was, "Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to this. Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to this," and that's really all there was there. Takashi Tokita was a lot more interesting because he basically said they implemented Kane as the Final Fantasy IV representative in the Dissidia Duellum, and they consulted him for portraying Kane. So he wasn't really involved in a technical matter as much as I understood it. So Kane is someone who is quite introverted and acts in the shadows, in usually from his personality. And he is now in a game where he is forced to interact with a whole party the whole time with extroverts and actually saying dialogue. So they consulted him many times to make sure that the things he's actually says are not out of character, which is really interesting. I don't think Kane is the only um, instance where this happened. There are probably many other developers for for the respective characters that have been portrayed in that game that have been consulted for dialogues and whatnot. And according to him, they already changed a few dialogues already. So it shows how dedicated these people are for really stuff like this. This will go over your head, like understandably so, because gameplay is, in my opinion, gameplay should be not a secondary concern, but it's really inspiring to see people being this dedicated to portraying small stuff like this in such an accurate manner. But that's just a small little nugget. Right after that, our best friend Yoshi P takes the stage, and as we know, involved in Final Fantasy 14 and Final Fantasy 16, he had also a lot to say, a lot more interesting than the people before him. They apparently picked Gaia because not only is she fairly new to Final Fantasy 14, her look also really matches this contemporary world, this modern Japan this whole game takes place. And they've also been struggling with Clive. He has been portrayed in many ages in his own game, so the question was, which Clive do we actually take and put into the game? Early Clive is stuck in turmoil, late stage Clive is involved with late stage plot development, so on and so forth. So interesting that they are thinking about stuff like this because the previous Dissidia game just made everyone forget what happened in their world. Seems like that's not the case in Duellum, which I think is a little unfortunate because as much as people like to shit and laugh at Dissidia and crossover games like this, I feel like Dissidia had a really sick story for a crossover game. Not the first one, but the second one was kind of crazy. Especially like scenario 13 is like whatever, but I think it's called Cycle or something. Cycle 12 and Cycle 000 were really gloomy. And it's a little unfortunate that this game is apparently going to be a little bit more uptight and doesn't really have a general rule for their story. So these characters will apparently remember where they are from or what happened in their own world. This is the implication I got from this whole Clive thing. And so I personally don't expect any good story with that. But I don't know if you guys remember. I forgot the name of that guy. He was talking about how games take way too long to be released, and Dragon Quest and both Final Fantasy have that huge problem that you can't really appeal to a younger audience because by the time a new Final Fantasy comes out, there will be uh, your childhood is already over. So you couldn't get this type of involvement with the series like a older generation did with releasing Final Fantasy 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 1 year apart from each other, and that's a huge topic I want to talk eventually in the future because development cycles and appealing to a younger audience and that whole thing is in a whole can of worms on its own. It's a huge fucking trouble that people dismiss a little bit too much, partially also because zoomers lol, younger people are dumber or whatever. But Square is also really concerned with that thing. If you don't know, in case you never heard of this, the average age of a Final Fantasy fan is 42, which is absolutely devastating if you are shooting for longevity or keeping any franchise alive. And I'm a little bit saddened by the fact that older people are dismissing this because we shouldn't listen to younger people, they will just ruin our IP. And partially that might be true, but in the history we had many great games happening only because the younger people got the chance to show themselves and put fresh new wind into the series. Resident Evil 2 happened like that. If they never gave Kamiya the chance he actually got on his second try, by the way, losing a lot of money and time, we would have never gotten Resident Evil 2. Lots of cases like that. So he was talking about that, how to appeal to a younger audience, and how development cycles got way too long, which is really interesting that they would talk about this in a PR segment because, yeah, it's slipping a little bit away. This whole turmoil that is happening within Square Enix is slipping into PR segments, which is all you need to know about what a struggle they have with keeping the series alive and keeping the longevity alive and appealing to a younger audience. You can also talk all day long about them just having problems with the gameplay, that they should go back to turn-based and whatnot. I have my own take on that, but to me it was kind of interesting to see that they are struggling so much to the point that they are talking about it in an ad, basically. What will probably shock a lot people more is the segment after that one. We are finally getting to Yoshinori Kitase and Tetsuya Nomura. And Tetsuya Nomura wasn't physically there. I mean, no physical appearance. He talked to us off camera, where you could see Yoshinori Kitase just fine, which is an interesting decision they made. Eventually, someone else will join, but three people in front of a camera isn't really that adventurous. So I don't know why they did. I actually know why they did that, but it was a little bit weird seeing it that way. And people joked it off as, yeah, Nomura doesn't want to show himself in front of a camera. I'm not so sure if that's the case because um, if you think about this a little, they talked about also a younger audience and how younger developers that eventually joined Square Enix are also asking constantly for new Dissidia games, which is really interesting. So apparently we are not the only people. It's not just us, the community, who's keep asking for new Dissidia games. They also have that kind of turmoil within the company. Even their own members are asking about new Dissidia games all the time. So partially that game apparently happened because of that, and also because it's probably a continuation to Opera Omnia. But they were talking about the new guy that will eventually join the conversation, Naoya Matsumoto. There is absolutely no information whatsoever about that guy. He seems really young, so it's a young new person that gets to have the producer role for this game. And as far as I understood, Nomura didn't design a single character in this game, with the exception of one apparently, which is from their implication a character they will eventually reveal in the future. And that Matsumoto basically did the character designing, and Nomura was a consultant slash quality control person that checked these things out. And if you think about this a little bit longer, him not physically appearing, talking about playing the consultant instead of doing the job himself. And if you remember in the past, a few months ago, he also talked about Kingdom Hearts 4 being his last involvement with the series, or something similar like that. This subtle implication of passing on the torch and not being physically there and whatnot probably means his resignation is imminent. So this is something you should maybe keep in mind. I think we will eventually have to say goodbye to him. I don't know what he's planning. I guess he's 55. For his generation, it is probably time to hit pension, I guess. Let's hope that's the case, which is also a whole can of worm we could talk about eventually. That people are resigning, or are even dying in some instances. And we have to say goodbye to a huge generation of developers that eventually joined and got famous around Y2K, and that we really need new and fresh blood eventually, which is a bummer, but the show must go on. It is a little unfortunate that we have a resonance out there that isn't interested in giving younger people a chance, but the show must go on. A average age of 42. You can Google this. You can research all that stuff on your own. That is really devastating. That is absolutely terrible. And showing, having this subtle talk, not even subtle, it's right on your face, uh, even though they probably didn't mean to do that, showing us how hard they are struggling with keeping the series alive and making younger people interested in it. And this also apparently being a an attempt to appeal to all age groups, to introduce this whole series and their characters to younger people and other people of interest, is a little bummer, because you can see a huge struggle within the company. Be that as it may, I bought a new phone just to play this goddamn game, dude. I cannot believe that it's not running on my current phone. But I'm also kind of glad, because this thing has all sorts of problems on its own. So it will arrive tomorrow. I hope by the time I'm uploading this, it arrived already. But if it doesn't, then I won't be able to be there on day one. Oh no, I can't waste my money on this overpriced bitch ass game on day one. That is terrible, dude. Do you know? Like, I am not doing a stupid 9 to 5 job just to keep my money in my pocket, dude. I need I need ways to burn it somewhere. So this phone better arriving right at time. I hope it's not going to be crazy. Square's price policy is policy is kind of crazy. And yeah, I am going to play this one. I will maybe on the main page document my progression. Maybe we will see. But tell me what you think about this whole thing. You can watch this interview if you want to. It's called Dissidia Duellum Final Fantasy Interviews with the creators behind Final Fantasy. It got uploaded on Square Enix YouTube channel. I think it's the North American channel. Yes, it is. So you can check this one out. To me, it's revealed a lot more than they probably intended to. It's kind of worrying in some parts. It's also assuring that they are trying to take measures to appeal to a broader audience and to younger people. And this is the last thing I will say, because we could, have a huge debate on this all day long, whether or not we actually need younger people in here or not. Or no, the normies, they will ruin our IP and whatnot. It is much better to show this whole franchise to younger people and, introducing them to a good taste instead of letting them rot in bullshit like Fortnite or Zenless Zone Zero or any other Chinese gacha game bullshit where they are burning their money and essentially ruining our whole experience in this hobby altogether. So I would much rather have younger people in here than them ruining our whole video game hobby with terrible practices somewhere. So you might have a different opinion on that. You might be a lot more gatekeepy about this and whatnot. And yeah, sure, it's all fine or whatever. In the end of the day, this is a struggle we have to deal with all together, because I'm a little bit on the younger side, so I got a few more decades ahead of me, hopefully. And it would be a huge fucking bummer if I would have to say bye bye to Final Fantasy eventually, especially as someone who likes the newer games. So I hope they get the momentum back with this game. They actually can appeal a little bit more to a younger audience, and that no, I hopefully they will actually make a fully fledged home console game that is more like the Duodecim instead of NT. And yeah, that's just it. Let's just hope for the best. I hope Duellum is actually really fun instead of being just a stupid gacha automated gameplay. But it's Square. Square is actually, in my opinion, really good at inventing new gameplay systems. You might disagree, but I think they are just making really fun, elaborate Devil May Cry games at this point. So let's hope for the best. You tell me, I don't know, will you play the game? Who will be your main? What are you looking forward to? You can even rant about it all you want. You hate Square Enix? Yeah, me too, dude. Fuck Square Enix. Perfect. So this got really long and rambly. Sorry about that. And we will see each other never, maybe. Maybe I will just intentionally run me over somewhere. So, yeah, bye bye.